When your dad loses his temper with you, or he has critical or sharp remarks to you, you can't see it for what it is that he's having a bad moment. So then he takes it out on you. It's got nothing to do with you. So because you have the fantasy that your parents are perfect, you say, well, it can't be he's flawed. It must be then, therefore, I'm flawed. But now as an adult, you're 17, so you're not really an adult yet, right? Legally.
No. Good morning, everybody. What's up? Welcome to my channel. My name's Jade. If you're new here, what's up? I'm a 17-year-old entrepreneur currently growing her business of social media and helping you grow your brand. But today we have a few things on our palette. At 8 a.m. we're driving to Santa Monica in Los Angeles to record a podcast at 10 a.m. I'm meeting with my interns to help board and do meetings for a personal brand journey. At 1 p.m. we also have another podcast recording, and I think at night we have a meeting. So I know it's a crazy day and you see a lot of people doing morning routines, but the one thing I don't do is check my phone right when I wake up. I swear, ever since I stopped checking Instagram right when I woke up, I felt so much better. Do you ever like scroll and you're scrolling and time flies by? You're like, shit. I find that the best way, instead of scrolling on Instagram and your mind is always like comparing yourself with other people on social media, and it's just not the best place, and especially in the morning, I prefer to journal. So currently I spend time journaling for an hour sometimes, and I plan out my week. And today I was basically kind of showing you guys what I do for my journal. I basically divide it up to 4 quadrants right here. Let me know if you guys want a whole video of how you can program and rewire your brain with journaling. It's super interesting, but I basically use something that's called the OKR system. So I spend time planning my tasks, then communicating that to my team. I'll message my interns, and then I will talk that to my editor to make the videos. So that's a little bit of my process. I spend a lot of time brainstorming. But with that being said, I actually have to get ready because we're shooting all day and I don't look ready yet. So let's go find an outfit. Hey guys, so Nykaela is here. Oh no, I'm really problematic right now. Nykaela knows this, but Jade's getting a little bit nervous. We're all human. Honestly, today we're headed to Chris Do's office. His company is called the Futur, and it's a little intimidating, to be honest, because I really look up to Chris. Me and my dad watch his content a lot, so I don't know why I'm nervous. Why? Nykaela, help me out. Say some words of affirmation.
You got this. You got.
So I have my questions written down. I created like a list for the show. I basically have a podcast where I interview entrepreneurs that are like absolutely crushing it. I might get hit. We're currently in Santa Monica, pulling up to their headquarters. Hi, I'm meeting Chris Do at 10 a.m. This is Jade. My name is Jade and you're watching The Raisin Brand. We have a very special guest today. There's a lot of things that happened this morning, but I have Chris Do. He's the CEO of The Blind, worked with many Fortune 500 companies, has a successful YouTube channel. I myself am a subscriber. Thanks so much for being here, Chris.
Thank you. Sorry about the delay. I thought I'd do this with you in person.
Right, thank you. What are you currently obsessed with? It could be weird, like a weird app you've been using a lot, or like a book. Is there anything you're like currently obsessed with?
Yeah, I'm currently obsessed with a book that I'm reading and I'm learning a lot from. It's called Conquering Your Inner Critical Voice, and it's written by 3 psychotherapists, and it's really interesting to learn about how we're influenced by our parents and our early childhood, and how our little interactions, however small, start to shape us. Because we're so vulnerable when we're young, we start to form ideas and defense mechanisms that we carry on into our adulthood. And when we act in a way in our adulthood, we don't necessarily connect it to an event that happened a long time ago, and we're kind of perplexed as to why we behave or think the certain way that we do. So it's been really interesting to learn about how we can change that and to become aware of those incidents and to empower you to make better decisions.
That's really interesting. So could you give is there a personal example, like you had like an aha moment recently where you connect the dots maybe from your childhood to something today? Is that anything?
For me personally?
Yeah.
No. And the reason why I'm motivated to read this book is, as you know, on our channel, we try to help a lot of people with tools, techniques on negotiations, business strategies, and things like that. But I found that the more people I speak to, the reason why they can't use the techniques that we talk about is because they have some limiting belief and they're holding on to something. And it's striking to me, the same advice that I give out can be seen by 100,000 people, but a small percentage of them will actually put those pieces of information to use and change their lives. And they tell me about being able to score the largest job in their history. They're able to overcome certain things and to have this kind of progress. So why is it that some people can do that while others cannot? And it's because their mindset is different. So that led me down this path of trying to dig deeper to understand what those blocks and those barriers are.
I don't know, because I have grown up with a family of entrepreneurs, and my father built a company. I've never met someone who had like a company going from a design agency for 23 years. It's a long time. Do you still have those limiting beliefs even at this level of success, or like it's just gotten completely different? Like, did you have the same limiting beliefs, or it just changed over time?
Yes, that's a very good question. I like to think that I have fewer and fewer limiting beliefs, and that I become more aware of what it is that may be holding me back, and to also check myself when I have certain bias towards certain things, and to understand that making a clear decision, or am I holding on to an old idea?
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, I have a lot of examples. Let me tell you about a couple different bias. And I'm still learning about this, so I don't know if I have all the terms correct, but there's something called the anchor bias, which is the first piece of information that you're presented, you tend to focus on. So when we talk about pricing and pricing dynamics, the reason why you need to say a higher price first is because that's what people are going to obsess on. I'll give you an example. Most of us, when we're talking to clients, we'll ask them, what's your budget? And the client will inevitably hem and haw a little bit, and eventually they'll say something, and they're going to lowball you because they're business people and they know how to negotiate. So they're going to say, well, I have $1,000 to do this. Say in your mind, you're thinking, I should have said 10,000. Now when I say 10,000, it's going to be a lot to get them to come from 1,000 to 10,000. Right. Maybe I'll ask for 3,500, and that's still a lot because that's 3.5 times what they said. So let's change that dynamic. Let's start by saying, before we go too deep in the conversation about what you want me to do, I need to let you know that my prices just to get started are going to be somewhere between 20,000 and 10,000. Is that something that you can afford?
And your brain is like automatically fixated, so that 10,000 looks like a good deal?
Yeah, well, a number of things are going to happen. One is you're going to prevent more often the lowball offer. And then when they say, okay, 20,000, that's a lot, but 10,000 seems pretty fair. And you may be surprised that some of them are like, yeah, we can work with that.
Dang.
So when they say we can work with that, that means they're comfortable somewhere in that range, probably towards the higher end of that range. So then you can go in and follow up and say, well, if I come back to you with a bid for 17,500 based on what we talked about, is that something you're comfortable moving forward with? So I'm going to check with them, and they're going to say probably, yeah, that's fantastic.
Are all sales objections similar? Because with this experience of you built up, like, you probably can expect what people are going to say. Have you ever been hit with a new objection? Is there anything that's new, or everything's pretty rotational?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. It's not your job to expect. It's your job to know what the objections are. If you go into a room and you don't know what the 3 objections they're going to have with working with you, you've already lost. You need to know that. Now, if you're a brand new student and you just graduated, you're not going to know anything. So what should you do? You should read a book. You should listen to our podcast on our channel, and we will tell you what the top 3 objections are. And they're almost always the same without fail. It's either you're too big or too small. And it's like the Goldilocks syndrome. Like, you have to be just right. So when you're too small, they don't trust you. When you're too big, they think you're too expensive and you're too slow moving. The next one is you don't have the exact experience in doing what it is that I want you to do. And you need to know how to overcome that. And the last objection, probably the most common one, is you're too expensive.
Right.
And you need to be able to respond to that, because if you are unprepared and not only not bring it up, but don't know how to respond to that, that's a signal to the other person that you're sending that you don't know what you're talking about, that you haven't done this very often, and you're going to start to spook the client.
This is really interesting. I made this question list a long time ago, but I really want to dive into this one. I noticed on The Futur, you talk a lot about digital products, and I've watched sales videos from you and client work. I actually priced my agency based on your video, so thank you, The Futur. I see a little pivot towards digital products. I know you have The Blind, which is the agency.
It's just Blind, by the way.
Oh, it's just Blind?
Yeah.
Not The Blind?
Not The Blind.
Sorry.
It's
I've been
okay.
calling it The Blind.
It's fine.
Future, are you pivoting towards digital products and maybe putting Blind, not aside, but just trying to focus on digital products and scaling it? Is there any transition currently you're working on? Just curious.
Yeah, the transition is already past tense. We've transitioned. We are no longer taking on client work.
Really?
Yes. So I want to caveat that. There's an asterisk there. For the right client, for the right budget, we will do it. And so we have some parameters, and we have been tested on these parameters. So we had said internally, the minimum level engagement for us is going to be $200,000. If you don't have 200K, we're not going to talk to you.
Right.
We'll just refer you to somebody else, and that's what we're going to do.
Right.
No problem there. So a client did come to us, a very well-known player in the game publishing world, and they said, we have 300,000. So we're thinking, oh gosh, now we're gonna have to do this. But after having an internal meeting, we talked about it, and we had collectively agreed that we're gonna turn this job down. The reason being is because it's going to take us away from the mission at hand. And for us right now, the mission is to create content and to make courses and to put our energies towards building our community and our audience, because we believe the long-term benefit will outweigh the short-term benefit.
As the CEO overseeing this, did you have an identity crisis? Like, not an identity crisis in a negative way, but from going to agency owner to course digital products, did that ever hit you, or you were totally seeing that as a positive transition back?
Yes. So this is one of the forms of bias that I'm talking about. So we tend to hold on to what has worked for us in the past. And one of my mindset and belief is to, all new ideas are possible, explore them before you say no. Say yes before you say no. Instead of saying why, say why not. So when we explore things, I just let them be whatever they're going to become, because a lot of times if you overanalyze and you overthink, you won't even try. So what happens is organically, this idea called the Futur grows into a company, builds up an audience, and it didn't happen overnight. It took years to do. Was that moment, that moment of clarity where I've always been very passionate about teaching. I've taught at Art Center for over 15 years, and this was our time. So we have to make a decision now. We have to decide, do we want to continue doing the old way, or do we like the new way? And it's just a risk assessment, risk reward assessment. And we decided this is it. We're going to leave the service world behind. We're going to go full into the product world. And so now the entire team of 12 is not split between two companies. It's all dedicated to the Futur now.
When did this transition happen? Recently?
As of last year.
As of last year?
Yeah, towards the end of last year.
What's your current goal for this upcoming year? Are you, obviously education is the focus?
$4.5 million in revenue.
$4.5 million?
Yeah, and to get to 800,000 subs.
Congrats on 400,000.
Thank you.
Amazing. That's awesome. I was curious to know, that's at the point, I actually typically start with the story, but that's where you guys are right now, going to 400,000 to 800,000, that's the goal. When you first started, I remember one of your interviews, you said that you just started to draw. You didn't really necessarily, as a kid, thought you could get paid for it. So it kind of blows my mind to see how this journey has been so interesting to watch. When you first started though, what was your first client? Did you go out of, you went to the Art Center College of Design. Mm-hmm. So did you get your first client right after college? Did you build a team with friends? How did this office come in the picture 1 year later? What was the first starting ground?
I was in Seattle. And so initially they offered me $40,000 a year, which I was like, this is fantastic. Wow. I haven't made real money before.
How old were you at this?
20.
That's great.
Oh yeah, and they gave me an expense account, and they flew me up, they put me in a corporate hotel, and I stayed there for 4 months. So I said, I'm done, I'm gonna go back to school, and they offered me a job. My boss at that time was an incredible guy, still is, I'm friends with him today. He said, we love having you here, would you like to come and work? And I'm like, I just don't know if advertising is what I want to do. Because I love graphic design.
Oh, okay.
As nice as the perks were, and working on big accounts and having teams and just exploring a whole new world, I just didn't feel like this was me. So I wasn't playing hard to get. The interesting thing is when you say no, and you have the luxury of saying no, people come back. So then he said, what if I paid you $85,000 a year?
He just raised it right there?
Yeah, he just raised it. I was like, but I still don't know. It's like, what if you work 3 days a week? I'm like, well, we have a lot of extra space. Why don't we hire some of your friends? You can run your own design studio in here on the other 2 days. So at that point, I couldn't say no anymore. Oh, okay, but let me finish school. He's like, that's fantastic. We'll fly you back and forth from LA to Seattle. And that's what I did. I would go to school for 3 days, and I would fly out, and I was like, this is baller lifestyle. This is the life, yeah. This is pretty nice. Because my corporate apartment was nicer than my real apartment. They had maid service. They had a refrigerator that they would stock. And I was just like, my God, the lure of advertising, it's hard to say no. It is really hard to say no. But ultimately, as I was flying back and forth, something happened, and I don't want to get into it, at the office where I just didn't feel like this is a good place for me. Culturally, I just didn't feel like I fit. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to finish school, and I don't want to work here anymore. And he's like, okay, I understand. And he gave it a couple more attempts to hire me, and then that was it for me. So I graduated school, and I didn't do what most people do. I didn't go and do the interview circuit. I wasn't prepared to go to work. So now that I'm done with school, I'm like, oh my God, what do? I don't have a job. So I called up a friend of mine and said, hey, I understand that you're the creative director here. Do you need a designer? And he's like, yeah. So, maybe I have a shamrock up my butt. I don't know. But things have just seemed to work out for me. I went to work there at a punk rock music label called Epitaph. It didn't work out for me again, so I quit 2 months later.
How old were you at this point? So 20, now you're...
I'm 21.
21, wow.
Yeah, I just graduated school. And I was like, this didn't work and that didn't work. And I was like, what am I going to do for money? Because this isn't for me.
Were your parents financially supporting you at this time? Or
No, not at all.
Really?
No, not at all. And they gave me just barely enough money to survive at school. I had some work that got pressed onto a CD-ROM that came with After Effects from Adobe.
Okay.
This was the first time Adobe had just acquired After Effects from Kosa, and they were selling it, and this demo reel that I put together, I didn't think anything of, people saw it and started to call me. It's like, oh, I'll start freelancing now. This is fantastic. So that's what I wound up doing. I freelanced for a couple of places, and that was really great. They also offered me a job. So I was working at a company called Novacom. They were at that time probably the top company doing post-production of making commercials. This is where you can book a room and pay the artist working on these $1 million machines. And they also offered me a job. And I remember Ian, who's a friend of mine today, he's like, so do you want to take the job? I'm like, no, it's less than 80,000. I don't want to talk.
What made you, just curious, like pausing on the story, this is really interesting. I've noticed throughout this part of the story, you say you held off on taking the offer. Most people would jump on it. What made you what was that? Did your parents or something taught you over time how to really get the best value?
I'm gonna be totally honest and disclose this to you guys. I am a cocky bastard. I really am. Wow. I thought, you know what, I graduated top of my class. Even in working in some of these companies, I felt, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible, and people are gonna grimace at me saying this, that I already knew how to design better than most of their senior designers. I knew how to put images together and lay it out with typography and think through it conceptually. That when I was doing the work, it wasn't as challenging to me. And this wasn't from my parents because they're 9-to-5 job people and they're very conservative. So every time I told them I'm quitting, they were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?"
Did it affect you at all mentally?
No, not at all.
Really?
No.
How?
No, I don't let people influence me that way. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So here I am. I feel like it should be love, and I want to get married. I want to get married to the best job and career in my life. And so every person that says, "Hey," doesn't mean I'm jumping in bed with you. I'm not going to do it. I'm very selective, right? We can date, we can explore, but I'm not going to get married. And so when I worked at the ad agency, even though my boss was incredible, the work was amazing, and they had this incredible support network, and it was going to be fabulous money, it wasn't the right fit creative. And then I went to this punk rock music label, and the work environment was okay. It wasn't my vibe, and although they gave me a lot of freedom, so culturally it was cool, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I quit. As I'm freelancing around town, I just don't feel like I'm going to be challenged here. So as I'm working there, he said, let me think about it, let me get back to you. I know what he was thinking, because he kind of laughed and smiled like that, and his eyes got really big. I know what he's thinking. Cocky kid, just got out of school. I offered you a $45,000 job, and now you're saying it's got to be 80 or more. He's thinking, no way. So here's how life has it. While I'm freelancing there, I finish my booking, but my uncle reaches out to me. He's like, would you like to start a company? And I just told him, I'm done. I'm going to start a company.
So wait, how did that process of starting a company occur to you till that moment?
I've always dreamt of two things in my life.
Yeah.
Starting a company and teaching. And I've done both.
Did you have friends along that route? If you were a cocky person, with confidence, what was your social life like?
My social life, as far as I know, was fantastic. I was just focused on work. I did have lots of friends, and I did have people who looked up to me, who came by the studio often and asked, hey, can we intern for you? Can you speak to our class and all that kind of stuff. I know I rubbed some people the wrong way, and that's just the way it is. I don't apologize for that.
Really interesting, because so a little context, Chris. Today for this interview, I was really nervous. Nykaela is here. Oh no! Stop. Okay, I'm really problematic right now. Nykaela knows this, but Jade's getting a little bit nervous. We're all human. I'm gonna be super calm and composed when I meet him, but usually I see videos of him walking up the stairs. These are the stairs. If he can see us right now, he's like, what the fuck? To be honest, I consult brands how to grow their social, and then
I'm 17, so I dropped out of high school just last year. So I moved to LA, but my parents in Portland, I always see you on my TV screen. They're, watching your content. So I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I almost like discounted anything I did for this interview. I was like, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm just like gonna get made fun of or something.
Right.
Chris is gonna bully me.
I haven't done that, have I?
No, not yet.
No.
Very, very nice guy.
Yes.
How do you keep that sense of how do you stay confident? Because even with the circumstances of your family, even with maxing 2 credit cards, what's the magic secret? How do you keep everything together?
That's a really interesting question. So when I was in school, when I was going to art center, I learned about design, and I felt like I'd been searching for something all my life, and I didn't know what I was searching for, but I found it. And what I was searching for was something that I could pour my entire soul into. When I learned about typography, it seemed like somebody gave me the key to design. I started to look at posters and layouts that I used to admire and think, oh, I can do this. Maybe I can do better than this, because it all made sense to me. It's like the code of the matrix was streaming down my face. I'm like, wow. So when you find something that you're good at, that starts to build your self-confidence. And I built my entire identity around that, because prior to that moment, I was a really shy, introverted person. I still am. I work on this every single day. I didn't even know how to say hello to people. When they would walk down the hallway and say, hey, what's up? I'm like, I don't know. And I would just like scurry away. Just like you would see in those horrible films about the awkward teenager who was a super nerd. And that was me.
Really?
Yeah,
I
for
can't
sure.
tell.
So when I learned about design, and the more I could put my energies into it, the better I got at it, the more confident I became. Like I had a skill now, and this is weird because even in probably like the third, as a sophomore, I'm taking a class with my friends in school, and they're coming up to me and asking me to critique their work. And I was thinking, aren't we in the same class, learning this stuff at the same time?
Okay.
Because I was just learning faster, and I was really losing myself in it in the most positive, beautiful way. While they went and hung out at bars or clubs or wherever they went, I was in the library pouring through every single design book. As that grew, my North Star started to find itself. So I already knew I might not be good at dancing or public speaking or any of these other things, but I know my way around design and typography. I know what I'm doing, and that is where that confidence comes from.
You found who you are through design.
Yes.
You made your identity, the confidence in design. So this is where it gets tricky. I don't know if this is weird, but I know my entrepreneurial family, like as a CEO, you really can't do too much implementation. You have to think about the strategy. You have to manage people. Really less of it's actual like physical drawing. So was there a point when you had to outsource it that kind of broke your heart because you found identity? No?
I outsourced it immediately, and it never broke my heart.
What?
Because as you may or may not be able to tell, I'm fairly maybe detached, and I think part of meditation, although I don't do that, towards enlightenment is to become less and less attached to things, to results, to emotions, to ideas, to experiences, to people, so that you can see things for what they are. So when I first got that opportunity to start my company, and I got work coming in, and I had more than one lead, I immediately called my old roommate and I said, hey, you're not doing anything, come work with me, I'll pay you whatever you do. And what do you want to charge him? He's like, oh, I'll charge you $30 an hour. I was like, fantastic, I'll charge $100 an hour, and so you'll do the work, I will art direct you, and if need be, I'll get in there and I'll put some tweaks on it so that it feels like my standard. And so we were just turning out work, and it was fantastic because people said, how long does that transition take? That transition takes exactly the moment in time in which you decide that that's okay. That's as long as it takes.
So this sounds like maybe people listening are like, whoa, Chris is superhuman. He's literally like,
I'm a robot.
You're a robot.
Understand that.
Do you have any fears?
I have lots of fears. I have lots of fears. Having fear is natural, and it's your ability and to find the courage to dance with the fear is where successful people live.
What do you have the current biggest fear like right now? Like, is there anything, because you've had so much you want to accomplish, does any number scare you?
Yes, I think the biggest fear that I have is that I won't do what I set out to do. I have great ambition for what it is I want to accomplish, and that's my only fear, is to let myself down in terms of reaching the potential that I have envisioned.
I constantly have negative self-talk. Do you have that voice essentially that
No.
constant? No?
No.
You kicked it out? Like you kicked that?
Yeah, I stopped that voice a long time ago.
Wow. How do you get that?
Well, you see, that's why I was reading the book,
Oh, okay.
Overcoming or Conquering Your Inner Critical Voice. And I'm going to start teaching that on our show. I just literally read it this weekend. So I will share some of that with you to maybe pique your interest. So when you're 3 or 4 years old, you start to become aware of a lot of things. And there are certain fantasies that you have, okay? And I want to let you know about some of them. First of all, you have this fantasy that your parents are perfect and they're all powerful. And you have to, because they are literally like life giver and protector of your whole world. So because you envision them as perfect beings, you yourself, when something bad happens, like when your dad loses Like who's the disciplinarian in your family?
My dad.
When your dad loses his temper with you, or he has critical or sharp remarks to you, you can't see it for what it is that he's having a bad moment, that he's dealing with a lot of stress at work or some employee issue. So then he takes it out on you because you just pushed him past his tipping point. It's got nothing to do with you. So because you have the fantasy that your parents are perfect, you say, well, it can't be he's flawed. It must be then, therefore, I'm flawed. I was the person who brought this upon the situation. So I'm not perfect, and actually, I'm not deserving of to be loved. So then you start to form all kinds of weird thoughts in your mind to get you through that moment, because you're just too immature to process what's going on. And so what happens is you put on this suit of armor to get you through the day and get you through your adolescence. But now as an adult, you're 17, so you're not really an adult yet, right? Legally.
No.
But as you become an adult, you carry this armor unknowingly. And if you think about it, it really, if you literally had an 80-pound armor on you, it would severely limit your mobility, your flow, whatever it is, your freedom. And here's the thing about fear and courage is that you need to take the armor off. It's not going to protect you. It doesn't serve you well today. But you will only take it off when you feel it's safe to take off. The courage that you need is to realize there's no more dragons, there's no more danger out there. You just take the armor off and you will realize that, but most people don't. So they hold on to that inner critical voice. It is a repetition of something you've learned inadvertently from one or both of your parents. I haven't been influenced by lots of people because I try to see things objectively. So when somebody's being mean or nice, I try to see it for what it is, and that's all.
Alright guys, so that was the entire interview with Chris. My life has been changed after hearing that. I don't know if you guys got any value, but make sure you comment below if you walked away with something, because I definitely did. Before you go, I don't think I expressed how much this video truly means to me. When I was in high school, that was only a year ago, keep in mind, I was dreaming about, owning a company, and me and my dad would watch Chris's videos on our TV all the damn day. And I can't believe, we met and we had a video together and filmed, and this ew, I'm so cheesy and I look like a scrawny teenager. This could not happen without your support, and I know that's cheesy and I'm throwing up in the corner. Your guys's comments and views and shares have gotten me to the point where I'm able to meet. My company has grown. Like in 2018, it was the most amount of revenue I've ever made, and a huge portion of it is people like Chris that are my mentors that are making content. So I am genuinely thankful for you watching. I'm thankful for Chris. Thank you to the Futur team, Matthew. Thank you. So yeah, if you enjoyed Chris and Jade together in a video and you want more, make sure you get this video a like and hit the subscribe button, because we might make more, but only if you guys want it. So make sure you let us know in the comments, tag us. Oh, if you actually tag me on your Instagram story watching this video, I will literally chat in the comments. We have the full podcast up on iTunes. Shout out to the comment winner.
Shout out to the comment winner. Comment on this post to be featured in the next episode.
If you want to be the next comment winner, comment below what you took away and what your thoughts are. I can't wait to read this because this is so exciting, and I will see you guys in the next one. Catch you guys in the next one. Check out the links below. Goodbye.